keep everybody safe, we added an extra week to our Thanksgiving break and an extra week to our winter break, and we're doing a hybrid model from here on out. And all that means that I am not going to be able to have fun library visits with all of my friends like I want to. I want to read via a video. Not as good as being in person, but at least we get to see each other a little bit. Okay, with the 4th and 5th graders, we were reading the Spiderwick Chronicles, and it's been a few weeks, almost a month since we've been able to read it last. So I was gonna start over. So this video is gonna be chapter 1 of the Spiderwick Chronicles. As always, after we read our chapter, we'll take a look at some magical creatures and we'll see what they're about and what they're up to. And maybe while you're at home, you could try catching some. We'll see. So the first book in the Spiderwick series, there are 5 books total. The first one is called The Field Guide. And the field guide is right here. So that's where we're going to look at our magical creatures after we read the first chapter. Already you can see the 3 main characters. We have Simon Grace, Jared Grace, our main character, and their older sister, Mallory. And it is by Tony DiTerlizzi and Holly Black. Here is the map. Spiderwick Estate is right here. And you can see it's surrounded by just forests and fields, and it's not very busy. Chapter 1, in which the Grace children get acquainted with their new home. And there it is, their new home. If someone had asked Jared Grace what jobs his brother and sister would have when they grew up, he would have no trouble replying. He would have said that his brother Simon would either be a veterinarian or a lion tamer, and his older sister Mallory would either be a professional fencer or in jail for stabbing someone with a sword. But he couldn't say what job he would have when he grew up. Not that anyone asked him. Not that anyone asked his opinion much at all. The new house, for instance. Jared Grace looked up at it and squinted. Maybe it would look better blurry. Here's Jared Grace. There's his twin. It's a shack, Mallory said, getting out of the station wagon. It wasn't really, though. It was more like a dozen shacks had been piled on top of each other. There were several chimneys, and the whole thing was topped off by a strip of iron fence sitting on the roof, like a particularly garish hat. Garish means gaudy, outlandish. It means crazy. It's too much. Too much is going on there. It's not so bad, their mother said with a smile that looked only slightly forced. It's Victorian. Simon, Jared's identical twin, didn't look upset. He was probably thinking of all the animals he could have now. Actually, considering what he packed into their tiny bedroom in New York, Jared figured it would take a lot of rabbits and hedgehogs and whatever else to satisfy Simon. So we just learned something about the characters. Come on, Jared, Simon called. Jared realized that they had all crossed the front steps, and he was now alone, staring at the house. The doors were a faded gray, worn with age. The only traces were an indeterminate cream. Indeterminate means hard to be determined. It's hard to tell what color that is. Stuck deep in the crevices and around the hinges. A rusted ram's head door knocker hung from a single heavy nail at its center. We talked about the door knocker as well. It's when you pick this thing up, and it's usually for houses that are very, very big, and so they might have a harder time hearing if someone just knocked on the door. So they use a metal knocker to bang, bang. That's what the metal one is for. Their mother fit a jagged key into the lock, turned it, and shoved hard with her shoulder. The door opened into a dim hallway. The only window was halfway up the stairs, and its stained glass panes gave the walls an eerie, reddish glow. Stained glass, that means that the color of the window, if it gave the room a reddish glow, what color do you think the glass was? Think about it. It's just like I remember, Mom said, smiling. Only crappier, said Mallory. That's very nice. Their mother sighed, but didn't otherwise respond. The hallway led into a dining room. A long table with faded water spots was the only piece of furniture. The plaster ceiling was cracked in places, and a chandelier hung with frayed wires. We talked about, what do you think this means? If you walk into a house and the chandelier has wires coming out of it, the ceiling is cracked, the tables have stains, like old mildew stains, what do you think that tells us about the house? Think about it. Why don't you 3 start bringing in things from the car? Their mother asked. Into here? Jared asked. Yes, into here. Their mother put down her suitcase on the table, ignoring the eruption of dust. If your great Aunt Lucinda hadn't let us stay, I don't know where we would have gone. We should be grateful. None of them said anything. Try as he might, Jared didn't feel anything close to grateful. Ever since their dad moved out, everything had gone bad. So we learned something else as well. He messed up at school, and the fading bruise over his left eye would not let him forget it. But this place was the worst yet. Jared, his mother said as he turned to follow Simon to unload the car. What? His mother waited until the other two were down the hall before she spoke. This is a chance to start over. For all of us, okay? Jared nodded grudgingly. Remember, grudgingly, we talked about how that means maybe you do something but you don't want to. It's kind of like, all right, fine. He didn't need her to say the rest of it, that the only reason he hadn't gotten kicked out of school was because they were moving anyway. Another reason he was supposed to be grateful. Only he wasn't. And then they have a little page break where we can see a creature. Some kind of creature is coming up. And so we're going to see, what's that creature? What could that creature be? Let's find out. Outside, Mallory had stacked 2 suitcases on top of each other. I heard she's starving herself to death. Aunt Lucinda? She's just old, said Simon. Old and crazy. But Mallory shook her head. I heard Mom on the phone. She was telling Uncle Terrence that Aunt Lucy thinks little men bring her food. That's kind of weird. What do you expect? She's in a nut house, Jared said. Mallory went on as if she hadn't heard him. She told the doctors the food she got was better than anything they would ever taste. You're making that up. Simon crawled into the back seat and opened one of the suitcases. Mallory shrugged. She said, if she dies, this place is going to get inherited by someone, and we're going to have to move again. Maybe we can go back to the city, Jared said. Fat chance, said Simon. He took out a water tube socks. Oh no! Jeffrey and Lemon Drop chewed their way loose! So he had some tube socks, and now there's a hole, and something is missing. What is missing? I know the 4th and 5th graders already know. Mom told you not to bring the mice, Mallory said. She said you can have normal animals now. If I let them go, they'd get stuck in a glue trap or something, said Simon, turning his sock inside out, one finger sticking out of the hole. He went, whoop. Besides, you brought all your fencing junk. It's not junk, Mallory growled, and it's not alive. Shut up! Jared took a step toward his sister. So Simon was the one who lost his mice and was saying, you brought your stinky fencing junk, but Jared, his twin brother, is the one who stepped up and told Mallory rather unkindly to shut up. So that gives us a little insight into Simon and Jared's relationship. Just because you've got one black eye doesn't mean I can't give you another. Mallory flipped her ponytail as she turned toward him. She shoved a heavy suitcase into his hands. Go ahead and carry that if you're so tough. Even though Jared knew he might be bigger and stronger than her someday when she wasn't 13 and he wasn't 9, it was hard to picture. Jared managed to lug the suitcase inside the door before he dropped it. He said, he figured he could probably drag it the rest of the way and no one would be the wiser. That means he could drag it and no one would know that he didn't carry it. He'll just pretend he carried it instead of dragging it. Alone in the hallway of the house, however, Jared no longer remembered how to get to the dining room. 2 different hallways split off of this one, winding deep into the middle of the house. Mom? Although he meant to call out loudly, his voice sounded very soft, even to himself. No answer. There he is, standing at the door with the suitcase he wants to just drag because it's really heavy. No answer. He took a tentative step and then another until the creak of the board under his feet stopped him. Just as he paused, something inside the wall rustled. Just as he paused, something inside the wall rustled. His heart beat hard against his chest. It's probably just a squirrel, he told himself. After all, the house was falling apart. Anything could be living inside. They'd be lucky if there wasn't birds in the heating ducts and a bear in the basement. That was, if this place even had heat. Mom, he said, even more faintly. Then the door behind him opened, and Simon came in. carrying mason jars with 2 bug-eyed gray mice in them. Mallory was right behind him, scowling. And we talked about how scowling means glaring really angrily, like this. That's kind of like a scowl. She's not happy. I heard something, Jared said, in the wall. What? Simon asked. There they are, coming in, carrying their stuff. He has those jars. I think his hands. Oh, you can see the mice a little bit. So he has those jars, and she's coming in, carrying her stuff. What? Simon asked. I don't know. Jared didn't want to admit that for a moment. He thought it was a ghost. Probably a squirrel? Simon looked at the wall with interest. Brocaded gold wallpaper hung limply, peeling and pocking in places. You think so? In the house? I always wanted a squirrel. No one seemed to think that something in the walls was anything to worry about, so Jared didn't say anything more about it. But as he carried the suitcase to the dining room, Jared couldn't help thinking about their tiny apartment in New York and their family before the divorce. He wished this was some kind of gimmicky vacation and not real life. He wished this was some kind of gimmicky vacation and not real life. So he's saying he wishes he was staying there just for fun and it wasn't his actual home. So we're going to stop there. And actually, it looks like there's a couple of classes that only got this far. So we're going to stop here for today. And then next video, I'm going to read chapter 2. Of course, we have to take a look at this and find some creatures to read about. In person, we read about already changelings, brownies. Let's read about kelpies. Yeah, that's a kelpie. A ghastly water spirit that assumes the form of a grayish-black horse, the kelpie drowns, then devours anyone who attempts to ride it. It is often spotted wandering along the shores of rivers or lakes, appearing to be a lost pony. It can be identified by its constantly dripping mane and by its skin, which is like a seal's and cold to the touch. The kelpie can be heard wailing before a storm and can cause water to rise high enough to flood. If you manage to bridle a kelpie, it can be forced to do your bidding, but woe betide you, it slip its harness. So, like I said, if you put a harness on a kelpie, if you manage to do it, which I don't recommend, if you put a saddle on it, then you'll have to do your bidding. But if the saddle falls off, then straight to the lake with you. All right, so that's where we're going to stop for today. We have still a lot of wonderful magical creatures to take a look at. Let me just kind of tease you for a minute. We got sprites to read about, and leprechauns, cockatrices, fire salamanders. That was the boggart. Remember, we read about that one already. Trolls. That one's going to be exciting. All right, thanks for listening to Chapter 1 of the Spiderwick Chronicles. Chapter 2 will come soon. I am also reading some picture books for younger viewers who maybe this couldn't really hold their attention span. We're going to be reading some picture books. So I will see you in the next video. And remember, wash your hands, don't touch your face, stay safe, and I love you. All right, bye.